you know what I mean, at some point you have to, I guess, make that decision that, you know what I mean, you're gonna break from script to a degree, or else you'll
Yeah.
just keep running same script, I guess. You know, you'll just stay in the loop, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
if you look at Tom, or rather John's life, like I said, he was stuck in the past. He's in a loop. He can't get out of it because he's trapped by his fear and his sadness and his trauma over the loss of his son. It's caused him to be stuck in this world of exception, like extreme masculinity, cut off from the feminine, cut off from his own inner eye, his precognitive abilities. He's cut off from any sense of humanity, and he's not moving forward. He's stuck in the past. He's watching videos of the past. So, this is what our lives are if we're not moving past our trauma, if we're not moving past our, what people like to call karma. But it's like if you have some story that you tell yourself over and over and over, you're stuck in that loop. So, whole his whole journey is about disrupting that loop, which is what Colin Farrell is here to do, is to
Hmm.
shatter that, get him out of that loop, get him out of the past, to break time, kill time, and get out of this whole precog situation, because that's the time problem, like the time loop, right?
Hmm.
And so for him, he not only shattered the time loop for himself, but for everybody, because it was perpetuated by him. Even though he was working this system, wasn't he in charge until Colin Farrell came along?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So
Sort
Yeah.
of. Yeah.
he was called a captain. So he's kind of decapitated when Colin Farrell came along, and then he reported to the chief guy, the boss, Saturn, and Colin Farrell's like, "All right, well, I guess you didn't know. I'm here now. I'm your boss," and forced him to confront his ultimate fear that would help him get past this time loop he's in. So the only
Yeah.
way for you to get out of it is to confront that thing that's holding you back.
The choices that we make here will have an implication upon whether we end up kind of looping back in through the game or whether we choose to exit the game. So,
Yeah. Well, not to get too heavily into it, but basically, you make that decision. You decide whether you're okay with staying here and living in deception, or if you're ready to face the truth and exit. Do you want to go home? How
mhm.
badly do you want to go home? Some people are not ready to face the truth. They're not ready to leave. They're too afraid. So the people who are there's people who have not made that decision. They're all caught up in the deception, deceiving themselves with 3D, deceiving themselves with distractions, deceiving themselves with things that are more important than the truth, and thinking that this is going to be just fine and honky dory, because they don't want to face the truth. They don't want to face themselves. They don't want to do what it takes. They don't have the constitution, the nerve, the gumption, the guts to face the truth, to leave. And
Mhm.
they're too afraid. And they think that, oh, I just come back next time. I'll do it another time. And it's
Yep.
like, why would you go to the extent of getting this far just to turn around and go back and start all over again? Because do you think
Yeah.
it's going to be easier next time? It's not going to be easier next time. If you're
No.
this far, you might as well go the whole hog, because
Yeah.
next time you come back, it's going to be more intense. It's going to be worse,
Harder. Yeah.
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 No, I'd agree.
because you were given the key. You were
Yeah.
given the opportunity to do it, and it was staring you in the face, and you said, no, thanks. And so when you come back, it's going to be worse. You're going to be put through trials and intense tribulations like you've never seen before, because you're going to have
Yeah.
to, because it wasn't enough the last time.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Sure.
your suffering was not enough, And you're like,
Yeah.
no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Also, yeah.
I'm okay with this 3D life. It's all good. I don't need to come back. Like, I don't need to do this.
Well, I kind
Yeah.
of relate to, not, yeah, well put, you know what I mean? Especially for anybody listening to this thereafter. Hey, you can't hammer that point home more, I mean, you got at that point, that's a great point to hammer home repeatedly because it's so important. That is really the basis of it all.
I think I'm gonna put that on YouTube.
Yeah, you should. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good little, no,
Well,
it's
yeah,
good.
you can imagine that if you decide to come back again, you will probably have more knowledge of the truth when you're much younger. And then you have to go through that period of life, which is a really hard period, being trying to find your place and you want to belong. But now you know the truth, so it's even worse, puberty and adolescence, I think, when you know the truth.
Yep, totally.
Well, you might. It depends on what your story is. Your chances
Yeah,
are you're gonna forget all over again.
Yeah,
yeah, that could be as well.
The way I
I
see
was
it is,
thinking that we could come back, yeah, with the knowledge, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you do. I think you forget all over again,
oh yeah,
and you have to start from scratch. But I think that once you start onto the truth, it will come faster. However, if it was not hard enough for you the first time, it's gonna be worse the second time. Not
yeah,
because
Mhm.
you're being punished, but because you need the pressure to rise, and it was obviously not enough to push you over the edge to say, I'm done with this. I need to leave. This is enough. This is awful. I hate it here. I am done. And sometimes you don't need that much to push you over the edge. You can sense that this place is wrong. You can sense it. And if you follow that and you keep on that path, it doesn't take much. But for other people, the ones who go through immense trauma, if you come back here, it's a fast track ticket to Ascension because you're like, what the hell? Why is this world like this? This is awful.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's when you get a story where you go through intense trauma. And people don't want that. You don't want that, but you have to choose it because you're going to have to come back.
Yeah.
Why would you do that to yourself?
yeah. Couldn't agree more. I mean, that pretty much. It's like the song, the David Bowie Queen, right? They just under pressure,
Mm-hmm.
So right, but it's all about just creating that pressure because again, when you create pressure, it rises.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You have to rise. You should rise. You know what I mean? But again, how much pressure does it take, right? Like, what is your almost like spiritual / esoteric breaking point?
Yeah.
Like,
Um,
and maybe I'm a wimp. I could be wimpy. Who knows? But I mean, I don't. I don't need to test that boundary any further. Like for me, I'm kind of like, okay, whatever I've even experienced in this lifetime is enough to convince me that that's good. Like I've had enough, or like it's been enough. I don't
don't
need to raise the stakes even higher.
don't confuse being sensitive and in touch with your true love essence with being a wimp.
Sure.
The reason that you don't tolerate as much is because you know that this is not right. And that's
Yeah.
why you're
Sure.
sensitive to it. Other
Yeah.
people who go through that intolerance, who go through that suffering and pain, they're not tougher. They're being put through the ringer because they didn't love themselves enough the first time to be fed up with it. They weren't in
Yeah.
touch enough the first time to say, I'm not putting up with this. So
Interesting.
the people who go through the intense stuff, they're doing it because they didn't love themselves enough the first time to say, I'm done. I'm not
Yeah.
not doing this anymore.